We need to meet the rise in data center, and in particular computing, energy and power demand for a couple of reasons, right? I think one thing that folks oftentimes will forget is that these data centers are not just power consumers that sit on the grid idly, soaking up energy that our community could use. They're actually powering innovation, right? They're massive growth drivers. They're powering drug development, technology development, and they're bringing money and quality of life to those communities, believe it or not. And I think in particular, data centers are a type of load that's fundamentally different than pretty much any other load that our grid has seen up until today. They're actually way more flexible than almost any other energy sink that we have, right? If we heat or cool our homes, it has to happen at a specific place at a specific time, versus AI and computation can happen almost anywhere at any time, right? And so it's this fundamentally incredibly flexible a load that we can actually use to maximize the utilization of the grid infrastructure that we've already built, right? And maximizing the infrastructure we already have, in turn, actually lowers the cost for the community in which those data centers reside. Data centers allow us to lower the costs. They don't actually increase them as long as we're using them flexibly. So Mercury Computing, what we do is we actually help utilities and grid operators enable the acceleration of beneficial load growth that a flexible data center can provide. What that means is data centers that would have been built and interconnected 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line, they can actually get interconnected today on today's grid infrastructure, thus allowing them to maximize utilization of that infrastructure and then lower costs for the communities that they exist in. On the flip side, for the data centers, right, they're able to use their existing sites, use their existing infrastructure, and increase their potential capacity in those sites by 50 or 100% just by being responsive to how the utility designates when they need to curtail or the ramp rates of their load. Big question, right? There's a lot of challenges there. In particular with data centers, we find that there's an enormous challenge in the market structure itself, right? There's a lot of technology that exists and is being developed that allows data centers to be flexible, which is fantastic. We'll see a lot of that come to fruition over the next decade or so. But we find that the market structure is actually fairly challenging because we have a multi-party problem with most data centers. We've got a developer, we have an operator, we have tenants, we have folks that are leasing that compute from the tenants, we've got technology end users. And when you have 5, 6 different parties all at once, it can be challenging to align incentives between all of those parties. Traditionally, the data center market has been very rigid and old-fashioned with how it treats SLAs, right? A traditional data center operator sees themselves almost as a landlord. Versus in this day and age, if we can start to break down those barriers a little bit and share the burden, but also the incentive of being flexible, we can actually make it a lot easier for data centers to adopt flexible power agreements if they in turn pass through the incentives of DR programs or the flexibility requirements to their tenants. And so the more that we get creative around those agreements, SLAs, and kind of spread the knowledge of how flexibility benefits the grid, the faster we'll see adoption of those types of flexibility technologies.